Welcome to our brand new podcast called Smash or Pass with JayBee, Milly, and smASH.
Hello.
So, in this series, I think our goal is to go through, every single Scooby Doo movie released and kind of do mini reviews on them with the overall verdict of if we recommend it or not recommend it. In this case, whether we'd smash it or pass it. But of course, the meaning behind that name is that this is a collaboration project with smASH. Now, smASH does so many cool videos about different Hanna-Barbera series, trailer reactions, and notably Scooby Doo, which I think is why we have you on as the expert. I think that's fair to say.
I'll try to be.
No, I mean, you really are. Like, if I've got any questions related to the context of things, I feel like you're going to know it. You're like an awesome encyclopedia. It's amazing.
I aspire to be. That's my goal.
So yeah, if you do love Scooby-Doo content, please go check out smASH's channel. That'll be linked in the description down below. And also huge shout out to SpaceLux because they've done a completely kind of original piece of artwork for the overlay of this, and I actually really like it. They added so much to it. So if you're looking for some commissions for any YouTube products or anything like that, please check out SpaceLux. So, the topic of this podcast is Scooby Doo. Is it? Oh my gosh, what's it called? I almost said Return to Zombie Island. It's Scooby Doo on Zombie Island.
Yes, Scooby Doo on Zombie Island.
Not quite that one.
No, not that one yet. But I guess I want to start off with a brief plot summary. So I think any of us can take that if that's okay. I mean, I can if you want.
Whoever.
Yeah.
We've seen it enough times.
I mean, I think that's fair to say. I think the reason why we're starting with this as well, and not, I guess, all the way back just yet, like Boo Brothers, is because I feel like this is one of the most nostalgic movies that they've done. Like, I remember watching this on tape. So, I guess without further ado, I'll get in with the plot. Okay, so Scooby Doo on Zombie Island was released in 1998 and it features Scott Innes as Scooby Doo, Billy West as Shaggy, Mary Kay Bergman as Daphne, Frank Welker as Fred, and BJ Ward as Velma. The premise of this is that it's set a few years after kind of all the different Scooby shenanigans, and they've all kind of gone on to have separate jobs. So you've got Scooby and Shaggy as airport security, you've got Velma who owns their own bookstore, and Daphne and Fred are kind of working on this collaborative TV show together. It's all very cool. Now, this is all well and good until Daphne decides to go ghost to ghost in a new series looking for some real monsters, and for that, Fred reunites the whole entire Scooby gang, and from there, it's pure insanity. So, I don't know where they are. They're at some fish market, and some creepy lady comes up to them. They get on a boat, and then they go on Zombie Island. And from there, they just meet zombies. I think that's kind of a basic plot summary, if there ever was one.
Yeah, that was very well summed up.
I mean, obviously stuff happened, like a few cat people up here. I mean, it's
a few.
But I actually really like this. Just minor things, a few cat creatures, zombies, plot twists.
Yeah, but in preparation for this, we did a watch through of this movie again, and kind of picked up on a few points that we think that it's definitely worth getting smASH's opinion on throughout the movie. So I think the first thing that I kind of wanted to pick up on to ask you about is the very start of the movie when they've had the jobs allocated to them. So as JayBee said in his introduction there, you have Shaggy and Scooby as security, Velma's owning a bookstore, and Daphne and Fred are working on that TV show. Do you think that they are accurate job allocations for like the characters that we see developed to then have progressed on?
It is, especially since it's like their first job out of mystery solving. I would see Velma kind of in a higher position, but like her first job after her whole mystery shenanigans, I definitely see her owning a bookstore. But it's funny because years before this, actually, before this movie, they had done an episode where we learned actually what the gang had been doing other than mystery solving already, and it kind of contradicts itself. So, you know, it's whatever one you want to take. But in that episode, Velma worked for NASA, which I think we all assume would happen eventually. And
Yeah.
actually, Fred was writing his own books. So,
Yeah, you know what? They lean into that in the 2002 movie as well,
They
don't
do.
they?
It's like Fred on
They
Fred,
Fred
the
on
many
Fred.
faces
They
of
do,
me.
yep.
Yeah.
Oh, they should have sold
Yep.
that. But like, and then Velma is does it straight like
Velma with
NASA?
I can certainly see that. I think like Shaggy and Scooby are kind of, I don't know what category or what presumptions I'd make about them. I
I feel
mean,
like that's their first job.
yeah, I don't know. I definitely didn't see them in security. I don't know what I saw them doing.
Maybe they just like got in because Shaggy was like, oh yeah, you know, Scooby is a dog. He's trained at sniffing out.
Isn't there like
Bad
one
things.
TV episode where they're like royal taste testers or something
Yeah, I
and
think
they
that.
eat the
Oh
entire
gosh,
table
I
of
think
food?
that's the
I
Arabian
could
Nights.
see them
Yeah.
doing something like that as opposed
I mean,
to
I would do that.
security.
I mean, there's a number of things they could have done. I mean, I would see them finding a bit more solace in owning a mystery bookstore than Velma, to be honest, because they'd probably just be relieved that they're not in the middle of the stories as opposed to anything
Yeah,
else.
right.
But it was weird. It's such a weird choice because I know there's like different Scooby timelines and stuff like that, but has it been revealed, or are we assuming that this takes place after, I guess, the original series?
So, yes. Okay, this is where it gets really hard because everyone has their own perception of how the timeline goes. For me personally, I've come up with one where it is one continuous timeline where a lot of people think there's different timelines in the Scooby universe. But for me, I've set it in stone for myself of just one continuous one. And so for me, this movie takes place like right after all of the classic series. But that also includes Mystery Incorporated and What's New Scooby Doo. So that can get quite messy talking about that, but I see it as after the original series. Yes.
See that's interesting because looking back at this, like obviously I think we'd rewatched it before, but there's a lot of things that I can see, you know, that go on to progress things. Like I don't know when they started trying to make Daphne more independent and strong. I always thought that it was the 2002 movie where she goes off and becomes an expert in Taekwondo, but even as far back as here, you know, you can see that she's kind of the star of the show. She's running everything, and Fred's there as, you know, a camera person. And literally, there's a scene where she flips Shaggy over, thinking that he's a zombie. So they do start to make those changes here.
They do, and you know why it carries over into like the 2002 and whatever is because, like you said, in this movie and through the next three, Mary Kay Bergman is voicing Daphne, and people don't know right now, and since like 2002, Grey Griffin is voicing Daphne, and Mary Kay Bergman was Grey's like voice acting mentor. And
no way! I didn't know that.
Actually, Bergman died, and unfortunately, she committed suicide. They offered the role of Daphne to Grey, and she was like, hold up, I really gotta think about this because that was my mentor, that was my best friend. She taught me how to voice act. So
that's actually quite emotional, and honestly, I can kind of see that because I was just about to say that this is actually probably one of the best, I guess, voice acting groups for the Scooby Gang ever. Like, I really do like, you know, what Heather North was doing up until I think a point for me personally a bit later on. But Mary Kay Bergman does an amazing job, and I kind of see that because for like these original four, well, I guess you can call it the original four, but up until Cyber Chase, you've got Mary Kay Bergman for these three, and then it goes over to Grey Griffin in Cyber Chase, I think.
yeah.
And it does work seamlessly, you know, not like the exact same voice per se, but you can definitely see the similarities. And I think I think Mary Kay Bergman does a fantastic job as Daphne in this. Like, I really do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they all do, really. Like, Billy West as Shaggy, really, really good. BJ Ward, what happened to
He's.
BJ Ward? Because
I'm
she was
gonna
really good.
say. I'm gonna say, Billy West is my least favorite Shaggy. Not gonna lie, but he still does good.
I mean, I think in terms of the voice, I kind of get that. But I think just like the scared Shaggy scream that he does, I don't know why. This is probably like the
tone
weirdest
for
thing.
the
It fits
movie,
with the
yeah.
movie because it's genuinely like
Yep,
the scream of
exactly.
fear. And I just feel like that's a weird thing to say, but I always think back to the scream that he makes in this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
But same Fred though, as you have now still, which I think is cool.
Oh my gosh, Frank Welker can never die. He is a legend.
So I think it's fair to say that with this movie, I feel like it became apparent quite early that, I don't know, I always saw this because I'd seen a lot of Scooby Doo movies before this one. And this is the one that, like, as a child hit me with a lot of fear. Like, I think it became apparent quite early that it didn't look like this was just going to be, like, a standard unmasking in Scooby Doo. Like, I think just seeing, like, the ghost appear and drawing on the wall and stuff, there was a lot in this that I think as a child scared me. Like, is there a point in this movie for you where it was kind of like, oh no, this is a bit different? This is, like, did you kind of have a specific point in this movie that kind of hit you a lot or anything like that?
So, funny story. I've had this movie for like as long as I've loved Scooby. And I remember watching it, I don't know if it was the first time, but really the first time that I really remember watching it. And at the point where the guy is like in the mirror and going to grab Scooby and Shaggy, that was kind of when it was like, ooh, okay, don't want that. And I actually never watched this movie again until probably 6 years ago because it terrified me so much.
Yeah, I do feel like this, like I said, young me who used to love Scooby Doo, they met this movie and it was kind of like, I don't know that I can watch this one.
Not alone.
No. Like you said, I think they did a very, I think the plot twist was really interesting because, like you said, there was so many scary moments when there was the kind of ghost coming out of the mirror, there was a ghost on the wall, there was a skeleton that transformed into a zombie. They had set up some pretty horrific villains, and then they managed to twist all that around as well. I feel like there was a very like quite an extensive roller coaster watching this.
So, do you guys know the backstory of this movie? 'Cause
I think I
quite interesting.
vaguely do, in that it was basically made to revitalize the Scooby series. Hence, why if you watch some of the old trailers, it will impose upon you the fact that this time they're real. Every minute. That was kind of the main selling point. But beyond that, that's the amount of context that I have personally.
So, okay, if you guys want me to tell you more, it's really interesting. Would you like to hear a backstory?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's amazing because you are the expert, and this is why I love hearing you speak about this. Like, I'm excited right now.
Okay, so yes, they had done a pup named Scooby Doo, and then Scooby wasn't on the air for almost 15-ish years, and so they were at a point of, do we let the franchise die now, or do we try one more time to bring it back? And they actually went through a few different like movies. They were either going to do like a Jetsons movie, a Yogi Bear movie. So Scooby wasn't like, yeah, we're doing Scooby. It was on the board, and they were like, yeah, we'll see if we'll do that. So obviously Scooby got chosen, and they were originally trying to get it to theaters, but not putting it in theaters actually gave them way more leeway, because with this movie up through roughly Alien Invaders, they didn't have any corporate interjection in this movie, and that's why they were able to get away with so much. But this story actually comes from a TV series called SWAT Cats that had gotten canceled, and this was a script that was written for a future episode but never aired, and so they actually just changed it for Scooby Doo.
Wow. That's actually amazing.
It is.
So SWAT Cats, was
yeah.
that a Hanna-Barbera thing? I assume it was?
Hanna-Barbera, Cartoon Network, somewhere within there, yeah.
See, that actually makes such a difference, because I feel that if this movie didn't do as well, because I don't know, I assume it was very successful to like be the start of a whole other series, but I feel like maybe if this movie didn't do that well, Scooby Doo would have like phased very much into, I guess, nostalgia or obscurity almost.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was make or break at this point.
Because literally, I think I read about, like, if this movie didn't do as well and it didn't bring Scooby back into the public eye, we most likely would have got the original edgy version of the 2002 movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think, for me, one of the parts of this movie that kind of made it manageable and digestible, even at, like, a young age, is I feel like despite the kind of almost the darker note that this has, I really, really like the music in it.
Oh,
and I feel like you get quite a scary sequence, and then there'll be a bit of music that kind of lifts you up again. So you kind of recover, and then it's like scary again. And then they add another music in it, and it kind of almost brings it back to kind of remove a little bit of the fear that they inject. But so I feel like that's one thing they do really well throughout all the Scooby-Doo, like a lot of the Scooby-Doo movies, is the kind of music does kind of almost remove some of the fear somehow, and I do think that helps a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like there's this score, and it plays several times, I think, especially when they're going on the ferry. And that's quite a soothing thing. But then there's like that kind of creepy undertone, and beyond that, there's some banging songs in this movie. Like
I
The
actually
Ghost
do
is
think
Here,
I could
Terror
dance
Time
to
Again.
Scooby-Doo music.
Yes, I
like a jam all day to it.
Like Terror Time Again is always gonna be one of the most iconic things. I feel like if everyone like says what's your like go-to song, it's gonna be that. But I gotta say, The Ghost is Here, even though it's pretty much telling you the most obvious thing in the world, like, yeah, they're fake. It's just such a great song to go along with it, and I live for it.
It was funny, like 2 months ago or something, one of the original people that worked on this movie did a live interview, and I was able to join and listen, and he was great. But he said that The Ghost is Here. He was like, yeah, we literally wanted it to be just very like this is what Scooby Doo is, you know. So yeah, there's a ghost. It's fake. Moving on.
See, that's so interesting. I mean, was anything else kind of interesting that came from that? Because that actually sounds awesome.
One of the most interesting things was his team's original idea for a sequel if it had been done back then. And it was going to be called Scooby Doo and I'd have to look it up. Something about like the return of the cat colony. So basically, now the cat colony would come back to life for revenge.
See, that's something I'm very curious about, because I think Millie and I got into this discussion, you know, going in like in the first like rewatch through, like why the heck are there so many cats on Zombie Island? I know the answer might seem obvious, but like, are they the cat people's children? Have they got like a cat army? Like, or have they converted the pirates into cats? Like, obviously not, because they're zombies. Like, I understand the general feel and foreshadowing, but why?
It's because these people praise the cat god. So all hail the cat.
That's so creepy, because it is just such a weird thing for them to go to this island and it's just littered with kitties.
Yeah, the cat's everywhere.
But no, I guess going on to this, I mean, what is your opinion of the overall plot? So the setup, you know, obviously Mystery Inc. they've gone their separate ways and now they've reunited. I don't know. A part of that kind of seems like it's rushed over, but at the same time, if it took much longer, I think it would drag.
Yeah, and I think as, you know, Smash was saying, because it was the first kind of Scooby Doo interaction for a while, it almost kind of explained that kind of time lapse that they've, you know, started to forge their own paths. They've kind of got their own like lifestyles now. I do feel like it's one way of covering it up, and I do think they did a relatively good job with the art style as well, in that they managed to make all the cast look a little bit older, be it mainly because of like, you know, stylistic fashion changes and that kind of thing. But yeah, sorry, back to JB's question there of the plot.
I think the art style is something very interesting, because I don't think they've ever gone back to it beyond, not even the cyber chase. I think, what's the third one? There's Witch's Ghost, and then there's... My mind's gone blank.
Alien Invaders.
Alien Invaders, yes! I think that's really the last one that feels like that. You know, like Cyber Chase kind of does, but I don't think to the extent. Although it's all done, I believe, by a Japanese company.
Yeah, so for Zombie Island, they hired out Mook Animation, who it was a Japanese animation studio. And then, so they did from Zombie Island to Cyber Chase, but in Alien Invaders, they started to go digital, and so that's when the characters are done digitally, but the backgrounds were still painted. And then Scooby Doo and the Cyber Chase is the first Scooby Doo anything to be fully done digital, no hand drawn.
God, see, that's so interesting. I'm actually really looking forward to getting to those as like a progression thing, but it is such an interesting take, because I feel that even the animation alone sets up that darker feel. And I think I saw this on a video essay. But one of the things that I feel like, you know, going back to what we were talking about before, like when was that moment when you thought that the gang was in real danger or that things were a bit different? And for me, I agree with this. I'm going to try and find the video and link it in the description. But if you notice at the start when they're at that kind of spooky castle and they're like being chased by the green monster, there's a point where the green monster slashes, I think, at Fred, and it rips off a chunk of like the jacket, and it's like, oh, like, obviously it's not like an R-rated thing where there's like guts spewing everywhere. Like it doesn't get that horrific, but just that kind of thing where this monster's tangible and they're causing physical harm. It's like,
I mean, I love Scooby Doo, so I do mean this in the nicest possible way, but it always seemed like it's just a costume. It's like it's Halloween, and once you remove that mask or that costume, there's no danger. But to see, like you said, something actively done, like the clothes ripping, for a ghost to be able to reach out of the mirror, and like to see, again, going back to the moment when the skeleton transformed into a zombie, it's like, okay, this can't be done mechanically, which is something that's been done in Scooby Doo. This can't be a mask. What is this?
Yeah, I mean,
it did switch
they do
up.
very much stretch realism, I feel, in some cases, like the Loch Ness Monster movie. Like,
I love the music.
I love that. So I love that, but you kind of think at a point there's no way that that's like fake, but it kind of still is. But just like the visuals that they use for this, like when the Morgan Moonscar bones like turn into the zombie, like I'm surprised I could watch that back then, because it is freaky, genuinely freaky.
So can I ask you guys a question?
Ooh, yeah, I'd like that.
So the Scooby community is very, very divided, and you are either on one side or the other. There is no middle ground. I swear. It is heated debate. But do you like your Scoobies, like... So there's Scooby purists, as we call them, and those are the people that there can absolutely be no supernatural in Scooby-Doo, otherwise it's not Scooby-Doo. And then there's the fans that are fine with it. How do you guys feel about supernatural stuff being real in Scooby?
I mean, can I take the question
first,
JayBee?
I'd like that, because I'm considering.
I'd say that there needs to be some element of supernatural in Scooby-Doo, or it removes all their fear. Like, if if it's not real, if there's nothing to be afraid of that these could be real,
Yeah.
why would Shaggy and Scooby be so scared every time? I think there needs to be something that almost kind
Like
of...
possibility.
Yeah, that possibility that kind of gives them a reason to be afraid. Like, if you, for example, put Zombie Island in the middle of a timeline, they have seen here that zombies can be real, that ghosts can be real. And so when they see, you know, when it's costumes and that kind of thing, they almost have a reason to be afraid. Whereas if you take the more, I don't know, kind of like Velma approach, perhaps, especially in The Sword and the Scoob, it's like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's just going to be a mask, it's going to be something. I feel like, I don't know, I kind of feel like Velma and Shaggy and Scooby are two completely different kind of timelines, in that Velma's almost like, you know, we've never seen anything supernatural, there's always going to be a logical explanation. But I think to keep Shaggy and Scooby's characters so engaging, there almost needs to be that element, as we saw in Zombie Island when it was like, I'm a little bit scared right now. There needs to be something to kind of initiate their fear and to kind of give it some kind of explanation, because obviously there's so many mysteries, and so it's almost like at this point they shouldn't be afraid of anything. So you need the ones that there is actually an element of supernatural to kind of keep that fear reasonable.
But where does that end, to be honest? Because I know that the people that are currently doing Scooby Doo now that are working on it are so anti-supernatural that they're not going to do anything that's real. But like, if you look at like the cyber chase... Oh, really?
I'm not going to name people, but there's one person working on Scooby Doo right now that is making it not supernatural, and I love him, but also I'm a little annoyed right now with him. But
I mean, it is understandable, to be honest, because I do feel like some of the best ones, I think, personally, are the ones where they've been real. But it's like, if they were to do, like, they recently did semi-recently did a sequel on Zombie Island and kind of made everything real. But say, like, the Cyber Chase, if they were to do another version of that, like, that's not technically a ghost or supernatural, isn't it? If anything, that's, like, sci-fi.
Yeah.
Or even Alien Invaders, that would be more sci-fi than a ghost. So could they make real aliens? Could they make a computer virus that's gone bad? Like, I don't know, I think that there's always a line, like, it doesn't need to necessarily be, it's a real ghost, but if it's a real something, like something that could pose a genuine threat, I'm kind of all for that. I think it works with the story. Like, if there's something that's just goofy, like, I don't know, like Monster of Mexico has a parrot in it that flies about, like, spewing utter garbage. If it then transpires that the chupacabra is real, I don't think that that would fit. Whereas with this, because it is a more grounded look, a more grounded aesthetic, I feel that we would have almost been robbed if they could just pull off, like, Jacques' face and it's just him going, oh yeah, I guess I grew a bit of hair.
I mean, I think there needs to be some kind of development with it. Like, I don't think it can just be a, oh yeah, this time there was no masking, it was real kind of thing.
This
like,
time it's
with
real.
Zombie Island, you get the very much, like, the fear levels, because you work out that they're real, and so instinct tells you that you should be scared of them. But then to kind of give it that plot twist where they're actually trying to help them and there's another fear and another kind of threat, I think that's kind of necessary. I don't think you could end it on just a, oh, it's a ghost, let's leave it there. It does need more to it. You can't just have a, oh yeah, this time it was a real ghost.
I agree.
There's no mask, there's no projector. So you do need to develop it more than some of the others where it's just a case of unveiling them at the end.
I agree, and more on that point, to be honest, like, for all I think that this is going to be a lot of people's favourite Scooby-Doo movie, maybe because it's, like, simply the fact that it's the one that I guess a lot of people have seen from, like, their childhood, but I don't think by any means it's a perfect movie. Like you were saying, they kind of needed a bit more of a reveal at the end. I would kind of almost go as far to argue that they struggle to handle the reveal that they did, in that there's so much zombie build-up, and then it's kind of like, oh, sugar, we've got like 20 minutes left. Let's just reveal the cats and get it all over and done with.
I mean, there's one thing
Honestly, I feel that too.
Yeah, there is one thing that we kind of want to ask you about, I think, in terms of the reveal and the zombies and that kind of thing. But before we do that, I kind of want to throw the question you asked us back at you and ask you what your position is in terms of the supernatural or non-supernatural approach in the Scooby Doo movies and episodes.
Okay, yeah. So I am not what they call a Scooby purist. It doesn't have to be non-supernatural, but for me, I want, if there's going to be supernatural in it, again, it's fine. I just want a really good story where it's an event, you know? It's not like, oh, it's just another Scooby movie. It's like, oh my gosh, it was real this time. The story was amazing. It shocked you and whatever. But I want it enough too that, like you guys were saying, where, you know, the gang needs reasons to be afraid. It's like they can run away from guys in a mask for so long, but where's the real threat gonna happen to make them actually be like, oh gosh, this could be life or death, you know?
I agree with you. I mean, like you were saying that, to kind of keep the real threat, it's almost like, what is to stop them the very first time they get near one of these kind of villains to not just reach out and pull the mask? Because at this point, it should be taken for granted. You do need that kind of element of fear to kind of keep the episode going. Because, for example, if you're looking at like a 20-minute episode, you see the villain within the first 5 minutes, it's pretty much presumed that there's the guy in the mask. So to keep it that extra 15 minutes, there needs to be a level of fear to stop them just wanting to reach out and unmask them in the first instance. So I do think that maybe some level of kind of supernatural, or again, like JayBee was saying, in the cyber chase, there was like a computer program. Again, it wasn't just a mask or something like that. I do think there needs to be a kind of further level on some of them, just to kind of keep that level of fear and to stop it from being like, oh, well, we know, let's just pull a mask off and see what happens kind of thing.
It won't be in those. Yeah, and like what you were saying too, you know, where like, oh, what's going to stop them from just pulling off the mask instead of actually trying to solve the mystery? I don't know if you guys have seen anything of the newest series, Scooby Doo and Guess Who?
Yeah, you were talking about it today,
I
weren't
saw,
you?
I think you retweeted it, that an upcoming episode, or maybe it's aired now, I don't know, but it had, I guess, the voice actors being the guests, and I saw that, I don't know, Ricky Gervais was there, like, there's a lot. I know that there's a lot of voice, I guess, guest stars.
Yeah. Yeah, so that episode with the gang's voice actors, that's going to be the series finale. Hasn't aired quite yet, but what I was getting at is in the very first episode, they basically like poke fun at their own franchise. They don't necessarily take off the mask immediately, but at one point we're meeting all these different people, and it's like, oh, this is Billy Bob Joe Jackson III, and he doesn't like this property because this and that, and this other Bobby doesn't like this and that, you know, just kind of giving us a rundown of these random people. And then every time it gives us a character that we can suspect, it keeps going back to the gang, and they're like, okay, it's probably that guy. And so, you know, you need those supernatural moments so that they can't just go like that, you know, like, oh, it's probably going to be that guy that we unmask every time, you know?
Yeah. And I think, kind of adding on to that, there's a moment in Zombie Island that I do really like where Daphne's like, oh, it's just going to be a mask, let's pull the mask off. And then they're like, oh, no, this mask isn't coming off. So Fred's like, no, it is, it's going to do it. So then they're like, oh, you know, and like go for the full head. And it's like, you know, it just kind of plays on that kind of scenario that we were talking about where it becomes an expectancy that it's just going to be a mask. And just to add that level of fear in Zombie Island, you find out at that point that there is something far more sinister going on.
And even though it's a remote island, they're not, you know, lacking suspects. So there's the ferry driver,
the gardener,
what's his name? I don't know. The Bo. And who's that mean guy? There's a guy that is looking for that catfish, and he's voiced by Mark Hamill.
Snakebite Scrub.
Yeah, they're all quite compelling, you know, suspects, to be honest.
And the girl, Layla, is it Layla? Why am I pronouncing the name wrong?
Lena?
Lena.
Simone and Lena. Yeah.
Yeah, Lena. I was calling her Layla. Lena, like, I remember the first time I saw them, and I was just thinking, like, even, like, the colours of the character is really similar to, like, for example, one of the Hex Girls or something. I was just like, you know, this is just, like, a nice character. It's someone that's, like, just here to kind of develop on the Fred and Daphne dynamic. Like, you know, they just seem quite sweet and innocent. And then doing the rewatch, I remember seeing them for the first time, just like, you don't look sweet and innocent anymore. No, I don't like you. Like, I don't know, I just remember, like, having such positive connotations the first time I watched it to that character. And then once you know, it's just kind of like you see them fall apart.
But that's like a trope in and of itself, isn't it? Like, they're always, well, they're not always, but they often try and, like, throw in, I guess, female characters, male characters to let Daphne and Fred have that kind of thing where if it's a female character, they're going to get close to Fred and Daphne's going to be a bit upset and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like, and they continued that from Mystery Incorporated and all throughout that. So it is literally, they found characters that would stereotypically fit into an average episode or an average feature, but they found a way to add in just some sinister twist on them all, and that's what I like about it. Like, for all the first live action Scooby Doo movie originally wanted to be a parody, but still kind of had a lot of the tropes, I feel like this is almost parody but without the tropes, to the point where it isn't too self-serious, to be honest. Like, there's, like, jokes in it. Like, I mean, there's things that take me out in hindsight. Like, I think Scooby is chasing after a cat, and he plows against a tree, and what's that musical instrument called that you pull back and forward and it goes...
Yeah, the accordion.
That, like, his nose becomes that. And in hindsight, it's a bit like, oh, okay, so if that can do that, it takes a bit of the risk away, but I kind of like how it doesn't lose the cartoon vibe.
I mean, the one thing that I remember you picking at when we were watching the movie was you kept saying, like, why aren't these zombies doing more? If they have the power to, right, get out of here.
Like, women, cat people.
Yeah.
Bad
like,
women.
You were working out, like, if they have the power to write that many words, how they could have done, like, 3 more effective words to, like, kind of put them onto the right trail. But obviously, like, for movie development. But I know that in hindsight, you were just like, oh
no,
my
but
gosh.
anything I can come up with, like, all these zombies are trying to help the gang, right? So you could say, okay, so maybe Morgan Moonscar shows up as a ghost and uses all of his energy saying, get out, okay? Well, there's loads of pirates. There's a whole pirate ship. If it's like a Twitter limit where you can only type so many words, get one pirate to write 3 words, another pirate to write another 3 words, and just have an essay going on with all the pirates just writing. That would
probably
cool.
shouldn't add on to that so I don't feed into JB's annoyance, but you could also include the moment at the very end when one of the pirates comes back to Scooby and says thank you. Could have done that.
I mean, okay, I get that, but at the same time, a part of me kind of feels like when the cat people go, perhaps the spirits are at rest, so now they're more powerful. But you're right, like, if they can just show up and talk like, thank you, little doggy, they can say stuff.
Yeah, why do they have to sinisterly reach out of a mirror instead of saying, like, you know, we're here to help you, get away?
I mean, not that they believe them, because I think they had a... Oh, I keep going back to the live-action movies for some reason. Well, there's some good reasons, but if they were to do a third one, it would have pretty much been this movie, right? Where they kind of revealed that it would be about Shaggy and Scooby having to deal with the fact that not all zombies... Well, not all zombies, not all monsters are bad. And I feel like that's what they have to deal with here. But again, I just feel like they could have been a lot more useful. Like, the zombies... I don't expect them to talk... But I don't know. It just annoys me. And just characters being obnoxious in general. Like, they've been invited to this place, and one of the first things Velma does is start vandalizing the kitchen.
Oh my gosh, right?
Like, I just don't understand how that can happen, to be honest. But no, I like the aspect, at least, where they've made the zombies scary, because even if they're not a threat, we know that they're not a threat. I don't feel like that changes how you see them, even rewatching it for the 5th and 6th time, because obviously, like, if they burst through into the room where we're recording now, even if I knew full well that they were friendly, I'm still gonna be a bit freaked out.
Yeah.
Because they are just
for
horrific,
sure.
utterly horrific.
And I mean, I do think that I admire the kind of choices that were made in creating this movie, because it wasn't like they just were like, okay, let's kind of experiment a little bit here, but not like go too far. They had ghosts, they had zombies, they had like the cat people transformation, and like even things like the voodoo dolls. Is it voodoo dolls?
Oh yeah.
Like just things like that. It was like, okay, they didn't just kind of go halfway with this concept. In terms of anything remotely kind of suspicious and like superstitious and all that kind of thing, they went like head on with that.
And factoring into that, they make it somewhat emotional if you think about it, like, you know, if you just take a moment to observe things. Like, for all, yeah, zombies, they're good, they're helping. But if you actually look at their costumes, there's some that are pirates, some that are just people on holiday, and it just kind of reminds you that these are legit, that these used to be human beings, that these cat people are just lured there.
It's a very well-developed story in that they kind of had that kind of time frame where they're like, these people visited at this time, these people developed...
That's a major clue, too.
Yeah, like, you know, these people developed this chili plantation, all that kind of thing. They actually have quite a well-built story, really.
It is nice, and the music in that scene was really beautiful, like the flashback scene.
Can I ask you 2 questions?
Oh, I would love that. I love it. Every time you say that, I just get excited.
Right, okay, this is going to be good.
I get gassed.
So, okay, I have 2 questions. One's kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier. I want to... So if a movie, like a Scooby movie, is not supernatural, so let's take Return to Zombie Island for example. How do you guys feel about them doing like a, oh, but it could have been real with that extra 4th black cat? Like, do you like that, or are you like, no, commit one way or another?
I mean, I think movies have done that since, and like just tropes since the dawn of time. Like, there's always, I feel like that's been something, and it's very true to form, because I remember it seeing mostly in like old 90s things, like an episode of Goosebumps, for example, where there's a kid, the parents are like werewolves, and you know, they end up waking up in like a sweat at the end of the episode. Oh my gosh, it's all fake. And then there's a moment where the mum walks in and she's like, "Hey sweetheart, are you fine?" Like, "Yeah mum, I just had a bad dream." "Oh, okay." And then she just starts howling out of nowhere. Like, there's always that kind of corniness, like, is it not? But I don't have a problem with it necessarily. It's just kind of, if they leave that thread unexplored, I kind of would like them to go back and explore it, as opposed to just, oh, okay, here it is. Like, I guess that it's there if you want it.
I mean, I'd agree with you to some extent in that if they want to kind of allude to that, it would be nice if they revisited it to clarify and all. But like, similarly with you, like, I don't have an issue if they want to do that, if they want to kind of have the mystery and then allude to something else. But I would have really, really appreciated it if they'd done it as part of, like, another story arc, as opposed to there was this, like, you know, really well-developed movie that kind of set a new precedent within Scooby Doo to then kind of return and then like come up with a story of how, you know, it can just be dealt with simply again. Like, I think Zombie Island was, I think it's to some extent one of the most loved Scooby-Doo movies. That might be a controversial opinion, but I do think that generically within a community,
I mean, in terms of popularity,
it is one of the more popular ones.
Yeah.
So I feel like it kind of had a lot attached to it to then kind of say we're going to remake it and do it completely differently. Like, I don't have an issue with what they did in terms of like the, you know, or could it be real kind of thing. But if they did it with a completely different storyline. But I think because it was real to a lot of people, it's kind of like...
I mean, I don't want to get too much into the timeline of things, especially not in regards to Return to Zombie Island, because I guess eventually the goal is to get to that eventually. But like, literally, at the end of this movie, and I know they retcon a lot of things, but at the end of this movie, Daphne asked the gardener, who turned out to be a detective, like, you know, have you ever been on TV? Alluding to the fact that they're going to release some type of tell-all expose, you know, Zombie Island exposed on TV. So it's like, they've let the whole world know, pretty much, that this, you know, I think there was a good story to tell in terms of the sequel. Like, they've let it be known to the world that there's, you know, zombies are real, that weird cat people are real, that ghosts are real, and whether the public believe them or not, I think that would have been a more interesting story to tell, because then, you know, the public can have that conversation with themselves, like, are these people crazy? Is it time to get them looked at or something, or do we believe what they're saying is true?
Or obviously now the kind of cat people had gone, it could be that like the general public wanted to revisit the island and obviously didn't see anything, and then kind of have something transpire from that.
Yeah, or they could. I'd see them opening that up as like a museum or something.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, for sure.
I think there is definitely sequel potential that they didn't really utilize, but even then, I think it's undisputable that from Zombie Island to Cyberchase, that's all basically one continuous continuity, and I think a big clue to that are the kind of different outfits. I think that's fair to say. Like, I don't really like the different outfits that Daphne and Fred have, but I feel like that's mostly consistent from this to Cyberchase. And it's like, by the time the Witch's Ghost happens, like, I don't know, I don't want the Witch's Ghost to be a Zombie Island sequel, but at the same time, I'm just dying to know what people thought about that television interview with Bo.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I guess we're getting on
I had
to...
one more question.
Oh, yes,
Ooh,
please.
okay.
I like that.
No, it's good.
Something I really, really like about this movie, and I kind of wish it would happen a bit more, but like, well, okay, I guess it's kind of a two-part question. So I really like that they go to this island and they're like, oh, no one knows you're here, no one can hear you. And so it's like, I feel like that adds to more of the intensity of like, no one knows they're on this island besides the people that brought them there. So like, if they don't survive, no one's gonna know about it besides, you know, obviously their family, because they'll never come back, or, you know, in their workplaces. But, you know, so it's like, but they'll never know where they went. Anyway, so for my first part of that question is, how do you feel about them being on this secluded island in this movie? Because I feel like that raises the stakes a lot more. My second question is, how do you feel about at least the basis of the movie, like when they're on the island, not necessarily the whole movie, but the majority of the movie taking place in one night?
So, I guess to answer the first part, I feel like it's quite a cliche way of like raising the stakes to make it secluded. However, I feel like it really works for this, you know, even to the point where they are so removed from society that one of the first things Simone imposes on them is, oh yeah, this place, it doesn't even have a TV. So,
Yeah.
it really is slap bang in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, adding on to what you're saying there, one thing that I really like about it as well, in like an even worse kind of twist, is to get away from that island, the only way out is the villain, like one of the villains, one of the people that transform, is the only person who has the boat off the island.
Oh, yes.
So in hindsight, it's literally like, okay, it seems like there's one way off this island, when in reality, there is no way off the island. There is one boat on the island, and the only person that can like move that boat wants you there because it's like, you know, their like life depends on it.
Who's driving the ferry at the end?
Yeah, that's one thing JayBee always asked, is when they get off the island, how did they do it? Because...
Okay, yeah, that's what I wonder too. My headcanon is Fred said, it's just like the Mystery Machine, only on water.
Yeah, like, that's kind of the vibe that I was going for. I feel like Fred would very much be like, oh, I can do this. Or even Velma, like, Velma's perfectly capable of anything.
But you see a lot of these people, because when the ferry goes off, Daphne turns to Fred and is like, oh, you know, without the weird cat people, this place is romantic.
Oh, yeah.
Velma's talking to the gardener, and
yeah.
Scooby's picking a pack of pickled pepper, and and Shaggy's just, I don't know what Shaggy's doing. Shaggy's in the Mystery Machine, I think. So they're all busy at that time.
I mean, I think like this movie is a perfect example of how people need to stop underestimating Shaggy and Scooby, because they're like, oh, you know, those two are that stupid, we didn't even bother to make the dolls of them. And it's like, come on, every time it's them two.
But no, you're right.
Like, what's the worst that Fred can do? Maybe set a trap that doesn't work exactly as it should. Like, it's always going to be Shaggy and Scooby. What are you doing?
They haven't seen it. They haven't seen the show.
No.
But no, I do love how in this movie especially they've like separated the gang from the rest of the world, especially in terms of technology.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, if you look at some of the kind of stories in context, it's kind of like, okay, we needed this for the story, but ultimately, like, have the police not turned up yet or something like that? Do you know what I mean? This does seem
but that's
more
a detective
real
guy, though.
because
Should have had
they
backup.
are on the island themselves. There is nothing else surrounding it. Like you said, the fear, the stakes, everything is just so high.
But what was the catalyst, okay? Because obviously Bo winds up being a detective, so there must have been some type of whispers or rumours about disappearances at the island. But they do make it very clear that Bo is new. Like, he's a new gardener, so there must have been something just before the events of this movie that was so noticeable that even though there's no TV, no internet on the island, like a police department somewhere thought to send in a detective.
And I mean, I think that does link on perhaps slightly to the second part of your question, Smash, is that like it been set in one night. I think, like JayBee said, for all, you know, you were saying, and that's a really good point, that nobody really knew where they were, where they'd gone, and ultimately it'd only be their family that noticed if they didn't reappear. Like, I feel like there was some reason why it needed to only be done across one day, because like JayBee's just said there was, you know, the detective and that kind of thing that would have had implications if that, you know, if it had been across a few days. And I guess as well, Velma's always I mean, my opinion might have changed slightly after Sword and the Scoob, when she thought that the phone dying was some kind of signal and they hadn't watched the battery levels. But like, ridiculous. I think ultimately Velma's a very intelligent character, and I think if it had been perhaps longer than one night, they'd have had more chance to work out what was going on. So I think to keep the shock levels and all that kind of thing, it was a very good decision to almost make it a brief time period.
So, okay, with that in mind, I have another random question that came up to my mind of, like, why? Because at least we're assuming, you know, it could be different, but just from how the movie plays out, why do they just leave the island? Now they're free to go investigate everything.
See, this is one thing that I actually think is a very good question, because I can get why Shaggy and Scooby'd leave. They're like, you know, it's haunted. Yeah. There's these ghosts. I don't care if they're good or what they are. I just want to leave. So I get Shaggy and Scooby. That's fine. When Daphne's got this TV show, how is it that she'd want to leave?
Right? Didn't the camera break?
The camera sunk in quicksand.
Although, okay, no, here's the thing. All they had to do to prove that there's something supernatural going on is quite simply take a voodoo doll. If someone doesn't believe them, okay, give me a bit of your hair, please. Stick it on the voodoo doll. Look, I'm literally making you levitate. Yeah. Like, this is real.
True.
Like, I feel, like I said, I can get Shaggy and Scooby wanting to leave, but I feel like if Daphne had this TV show, that's her and Fred there surely for a couple of months, just like investigating. And it should be like a huge breakthrough for Velma, because, you know, they're always the level-headed one, like, oh, there's a reasonable explanation, we just need to work this out. And like, surely it should have like blown their mind completely that there was actually something real this time. That surely they've spent so many years of their life solving mysteries to prove that this isn't real, that they'd almost have some kind of obsession or fascination with working out exactly what happened. So you're right, like, I don't see how they would have left so quickly.
Yeah, because they went there for a purpose, and now they're just casually leaving with peppers.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like that question. So, like, what's your view on that? that they wanted to leave the island so quickly and that kind of thing?
So I think this is kind of where, honestly, Return to Zombie Island gets sparked, is like, oh, yeah, they did leave so fast. So, and that's kind of where Velma's little thing in that movie, it's unsolved, blah, 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 kind of comes into play of like, she's like, well, we didn't really get to investigate. I want to go figure out why it all worked and all that, except she did it in a more annoying way, but it's fine. Her character needs some help right now. But I think this is where, honestly, Return to Zombie Island kind of sparked, is that they did just leave in a hurry and didn't investigate any of it.
I mean, that's what I like about Return to Zombie Island, in that there was, without a shadow of a doubt, as much as people are like, oh, why are they making sequels to just like cash grab? Obviously, just putting Zombie Island next to Scooby Doo will spark nostalgia in people that probably didn't buy or watch Scooby Doo movies for years and years and years, maybe even since the original. But without a shadow of a doubt, there was definitely more story to tell here.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I would even love, like, if they... I wish in hindsight they'd just split this movie in half, or at least dedicated a bit more to the cat people, because they did Return to Zombie Island and made it a lot more, like, a lot of build-up, like, there's, like, zombies coming in, but just more about the cat people, and they kind of did give you that, but, like, there must be more to that. Like, zombies, they're, like, reanimated, right? They're the people that they lured into them. And I guess there's a cat god that turns people into cats, but it doesn't really explain who the cat god is, why the cat god's there, what the cat god's beef with people is like. There's just a lot unsolved. It is unsolved.
I have two questions that I want to throw to each of you two now.
Ooh.
So the first one, and we'll ask Smash this first. What is your biggest unanswered question or doubt from Zombie Island? Like, is there anything that you felt lacked an answer, and it is something that's kind of, it's left you thinking for all these years, what did they mean by that, what happened there?
Yeah, let me think for a second.
I can see JB's thinking here as well.
I
have to answer this next.
I think I've got one, but it's kind of something I've said before.
You can go ahead.
Well, I guess my question was, okay, maybe this is me being influenced after being like hyped by Mystery Incorporated and how obsessed Fred is with traps, but I kind of feel that he would be like over the moon if he got if he could just take hold of those voodoo dolls, because literally all you need to do is get a hair of any criminal, of anyone, grab the voodoo doll, and that's like a fail-safe trap. That's like the trap to end all traps. All you need is a lock of hair, and you could trap anything. You could trap anyone. I don't know why he didn't make off with one of them.
That is something that's quite interesting. Is like, it's almost like they knew that it was supernatural, because there wasn't like attempts at setting traps or anything, was there?
No, it's like...
It's kind of like the entire kind of basis changed.
Maybe that's why they had to kind of forget about this movie quite quickly until they got to a stage where they didn't like the supernatural things. Like a bit like J.K. Rowling had to retcon the time turners out of the rest of the series just because they were too overpowered. Maybe that. But
also, I guess maybe they didn't reach the point where they needed traps or anything like that. So I guess it can be explained away.
Let me think. Would they need... I mean, they have kind of semi-traps, right? Like, I think there's a scene where Fred and Daphne pull back a tree branch and, like, ping it against some zombies. So I guess they kind of make do with what they've got. But you're right. I guess with it being one night, there's no opportunity to say, okay, let's just trip these zombies up or pull the cat's tails or anything.
So did you think of a kind of burning question that the movie left you with?
Yes, and I feel a little bad because this is actually kind of a question that was brought to me by my friend when Return to Zombie Island came out. They tried to answer it in Return to Zombie Island, but it just felt so like they pulled it out of their butt to have something, and I'm not satisfied with it. But what was the significance of Simone's necklace? She had to have been given it by some sort of cat god, there is no way that was what shows them where Morgan Moonscar's treasure is, because she wasn't burying it.
No, I mean, it looked like she'd have had that before Morgan
before the
Moonstone
pirates
turned up,
even
right?
rocked up. Unless Morgan Moonscar was a fanatic of cat-shaped jewelry.
Playing with it.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point.
Yeah, true.
It could be
so, anyway,
a vessel? I don't know. That's actually a really good question.
I mean, I kind of link it with some of their power or something, right?
Yeah, right? Because they have to put it on the moon dial when it turns midnight.
Wow. So, it could be... I mean, did she say where she got it from? Because I was almost thinking it could have been passed down through generations, and maybe there was like a whole community there once upon a time.
I was going to say that, like, it was almost given to them for the first time they transformed or something.
Who gave it to the... Wait, did they actually meet a cat god in the movie? Was that part of the flashback? Like, Black Panther just shows up and gives them a necklace. And why a necklace? And why zombies?
But I don't think it matches the timeline, what you were saying there about the direction to the treasure, because I'd say they must have had it before, because that wasn't the first time they changed, and like you said, they had to put it on the table.
Yeah, and if this cat god can make people into cat people using some mystical powers, why do people that get drained turn into zombies? Wouldn't it make more sense to make more cat people and just have like a planet of cats?
I'm kind of wishing I hadn't asked this question, because this has actually got me now. Like,
I'm stumped.
Like when you like can't sleep or something and you just start like going through the world's biggest mysteries. If I can't sleep tonight, I'm gonna start thinking in my head like, when would that necklace have like originated?
I want to watch it again.
Would it
now.
be like, yeah, me too?
Remember though, so the whole point, they went to pray to the cat god because they were so devastated, and what had happened is the cat god cursed them. The cat god didn't help them. Instead, they said, okay, the cat god said, okay, I'll turn you into cat creatures, you can go murder these pirates. And then they figured out it was a curse, because to now stay alive, they have to drain people. So it was either keep draining people to stay alive, and they kept doing it, and they got, evil as time went on, or perish away, basically.
Wouldn't it have made a lot more sense to set this movie in Egypt? Because as far as I'm aware, the only kind of civilization to worship cats have been the Egyptians. So who are these people? They're just random islanders that like cats, and there's so happens to be a cat god, and that goes on to just supernatural, right? That's like a full-on godlike entity, an almighty entity that they've just introduced. So, and for all they destroy the cat women, they don't destroy the cat god. So there is still a full-on cat god in the Scooby universe somewhere, just chilling.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. What's stopping someone else from going and praying to that statue and becoming a cat creature?
Like, anyone could be a cat creature. You could just go there and get powers, like free powers. Maybe, although maybe that's where the other cat comes from Return to Zombie Island. Someone just tries to get involved, and then it happens.
Okay, here's my guess for that black cat. I know we're not on Return to Zombie Island, but just for story-wise, my guess, because the only person we know that's left on that island is Snakebite, who was trying to get that catfish. I'm guessing he wandered the island, was like, oh, nobody else is here, and then found that statue, and the cat god was like, hey, you're a cat now.
Oh, God. Oh, the cat and the... Oh, wait, the catfish was kind of a hint as well, wasn't it? Like, everything's to do with cats. I didn't get that until now. But literally, the first time we watched it yesterday for the program, I honestly thought that catfish was called Big Rona.
Find my lake.
So I think
they called it Big Mona.
Big Mona.
One of my I've come up with another question now. One of my next questions is, what's something that you really like about this movie that hasn't been recreated since this point? Like, is there a feature of this movie that you wish was a more frequent presence in Scooby Doo?
I think one of the biggest things, and I just love this movie for it. I wouldn't say that it's not in other movies, but it's just not, at least I feel like, hasn't been done super well. You guys were talking about it, but where, when all the zombies are coming out, uh, if you pay attention, you notice there's generations of zombies. They're in different clothes of generations. Some people are on, vacation wear. Some people are in war wear. And that is like one of the biggest clues that isn't yelling at you. And I just wish Scooby movies would have these more visual clues that aren't in your face, but if you really pay attention, it is telling you exactly what's going on.
I like that. That was a good point.
Me too.
JayBee, what about you? Something that they've not brought forward?
A bit like that. I think it's more, I want to say the mystery aspect, as weird as that sounds, but especially with the original 4, in that, in the cyber chase, there's 2 groups of people, and obviously we're not on that yet, but there's 2 game developers, a Scooby game guy and a baseball game guy, and that treacherous phantom virus insists on saying, let's play ball at every given opportunity, and smacking a bat around. In the witch's ghost, everyone's going, are they a real witch or are they not a real witch? And on the cover of the DVD, it shows a real witch. I just feel like there's so many instances, apart from, I guess, Alien Invaders, where it is a genuine mystery, and I quite like it from that aspect. But just the fact that there was no obvious answer. Obviously, Bo is shifty, Snakebite is shifty, but if you were to ask yourself, well, why are they suspicious? You can think of nothing else but, oh, they're a bit mean, they're a bit angry. There's nothing that ties them to anything. Follow the
formula, does it?
And I just missed that mystery aspect where you're genuinely wondering who it could be. And of course, in this situation, it really isn't anyone as such.
So can I add something else to my answer?
Of course.
Something else that I will always praise Zombie Island for, and no other Scooby has done it yet because, they got to put stuff on the artwork, on the DVD artwork to make it sell, but there is in no way any sort of sign of cats or cat creatures on the DVD cover of Zombie Island. So when you're going into the movie blindly, it is telling you nothing until you put that movie in and start it up. Whereas the newer Scooby movies, they try to be like, look, scary monster, isn't it so cool? They try to sell it to you,
Yeah, we almost get clickbaited nowadays. I stand by. I was disappointed at Sword and the Scoop, even though I like the movie, that it shows a massive dragon on the front cover, and then it shows up for 2 seconds.
Yep.
I'm looking at the movie cover now because we've put it on the visual for this episode, and the only thing that you see that even remotely comes back at the end is a full moon. Can you see that there, JayBee?
But that castle is the castle from the start. It's not even a location in Zombie
even then, that doesn't give anything away. It is amazing.
There is one alternate poster for Zombie Island. It was released after the movie had been out for a bit, and so they were trying to say, own it now, on VHS and DVD. And there's that alternate poster has Simone as a cat creature in that moon, and so that's a little disappointing, but they didn't start out with that one.
Oh gosh, I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Yeah, look it up. It's actually kind of cool.
That's weird. That is weird.
So I guess we're kind of heading to the point where we were asking the ultimate question. Unless, JayBee, is there anything else you want to add?
I mean, there's an amusing post-credit scene for people that want to stick around for that. I mean, it's nothing groundbreaking, but I thought it was cute. It just, I don't know, I think it's Scooby giving milk to cats.
Yep.
Okay, so we are at that question. So we'll start off with you. Smash, would you smash or pass this movie?
I will smash this one. Who can't do this one?
Okay, and honestly, I think it may have got to a stage more recently where it's a bit too overpraised, but in no reality, in no alternate reality, would I do anything other than smash this movie. I'm smashing this all day.
I mean, I'm going to have to say Smash for this movie as well. Like I said, I can link so much. I mean, this is going to sound bad, but like almost like childhood terror I can link to this movie so strongly.
Full on trauma.
It did like bring out like fear that I remember clearly like over a decade on. So
Yes.
Why wasn't Return to Zombie Island called Terror Time Again?
That should have been the tagline. Okay, I'm going to send you guys a poster. Someone made a fan poster when it originally got announced, and that poster just gives me the best sequel vibes it could have been.
Oh gosh, I actually really like how you said that Terror Time Again thing, JayBee. That works.
That would have been great. I just think they wanted Zombie Island on it.
So the first episode, and we all agree that this movie is a smash. Now, JayBee, what is the movie for the next episode?
I mean, I kind of wanted to do these weekly. I don't know if that's how it's going to plan out. Like, we will see. I admit, I think with it being the first episode, I was a little bit shaky, but I'm honestly hyped to get onto some of these things later on as well. Because especially some of the more divisive ones, I think it's going to be a lot more than just, oh, this movie is great, but that could have been done better.
I mean, even like, not just for the channel, like, I find this genuinely really interesting. Like, I grew up watching these movies. Like, I would come home from school, Boomerang would be the first thing I looked at trying to find Scooby Doo. And like, and I've just always loved them. And like, obviously speaking to Smash, there's things I didn't even consider about Scooby Doo. So just like on a personal aspect, I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, please, everyone watching this and listening to this, please do check out Smash's channel, because there's been many times that Smash has blown my mind. Like, the creeper isn't actually saying creeper in the initial episode. And that's something that I heard Smash say, and my life has been different ever since.
So, JayBee, what is the movie
that
people can look forward to us analysing next?
So, next up, we have Scooby Doo and The Witch's Ghost. A very interesting one, and I think one that I'm going to have a few interesting takes on, so hopefully that comes out at some point. I don't know. But yeah, please do get excited for that.
Yeah, I'm a little half and half on Witch's Ghost, but we'll get into that in that episode.
But I guess it comes down to now, I guess, because Smash is the guest, or I guess permanent host for this series. But where can they find you on the internet?
Yeah, you guys obviously can find me over on the YouTube. My channel is called smASH, but if you just search Ashton Hardy, it should be the first one that pops up. Otherwise, I'm on Twitter at AshtonHardy_, and same thing for Instagram.
Okay, thank you so much. Please make sure to check that out. Now, as usual, remember, just like the villain could have gotten away with it without you meddling kids, we couldn't make this show without you awesome viewers. So please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and comment down below what movie you're most excited to be covered in the future. And as usual, please like, comment, and subscribe. JayBee, Milly, and Smash.